So I feel like we're losing traction with this, and I wanted to do a video a little bit longer form, talk about why the directions and why I chose to do this part of the practice first. Essentially, the directions kind of saved my life in a lot of ways. I can remember being young and super intense and completely fucking lost, and realizing that I didn't have any orientation, any deeper understanding of what was true, what was valid, what was spiritual. Um, I found psychedelics early and used those to make my brain more plastic, to understand more about the patterns that were placed upon me, and I couldn't reconcile the things I was seeing through my altered reality experiences and the daily interactions I was having with the people around me. And I went to a couple of ceremonies, rituals with people that I trusted, and it was really clear to me that when they called in the directions, it was like for me being in nature. Nature's always been a place of deep grounding and balance for me, and sitting in a circle for maybe the first time ever, sitting in ritual space for maybe the first time ever, I was able to understand more deeply how these technologies actually bring us closer to ourselves, closer to nature, closer to the broader spectrum of the ineffable. I've always been a highly sensitive person. I've always been clairvoyant. I've always been intuitive. I've heard spirits and voices and channels since I can remember. I buried that really deeply under a layer of tobacco and ganja smoke for most of my teens into my 20s, and then started really doing a lot of body work, started doing a lot of rituals, started doing a lot of different sorts of esoteric activities that led me to understand more about my own personal nature. And the directions were a huge part of that. Um, in those days, the circles that I was sitting in, the directions were four. There was north, south, east, and west, and they were called in as entities, as energies, as ways of connecting and orienting to space, but it felt very two dimensional. And I was much more interested in three dimensions, four dimensions, five dimensions, as I am now, probably more connected to seven dimensions. But and then at some point, one of my teachers was doing a ceremony of some sort. I think we were doing medicine. I can't even remember now. I can remember the feeling that I had of sitting in that circle, and this individual called in all seven directions, and that connection to the above and the below, and the recognition that center was the place where all of that was being processed and integrated into the wholeness of myself was extremely powerful. And over time, I started doing more traveling astrally and ethereally. I started doing energy work afar. I started like receiving energy work from distance. I started doing a lot of somatic or patterning work and some past life work and different kinds of alchemical transformational work. And I realized that there was a potential for me to get lost in these places, for me to project my energy and my astral body into the ethereal, into the ineffable voids that are out there, and that if I didn't have a solid foundational practice of orientation, that I could get lost, that I could lose myself in some esoteric mindscape, that I could get stuck in a paradigm of disconnection and dissociation, and And I learned what it was to be in my body in my late 20s. I had had experiences of it, mostly in sexual experience and nature experience and medicine experience. And then I did a 10-day Vipassana in my late 20s. And while that experience wasn't foundationally important on a meditation level, it was dramatically important on an orientation to the body and an orientation to the sensations. And that helped in me. And very soon after that, I found my first clairvoyant teacher who helped me understand my gifts, and she encouraged me to travel. She encouraged me to find ways to use my gifts and use my proclivities to help both myself heal and help other people see their gifts. And through that process, I started calling in the directions. Before I would step into a trance state or go into the hypnagogic state, before sleep, before I would step into a channeling session or an intuitive session with a human, I would call in the directions, and it would give me both orientation to time and space where I was, and it would also give me a gyroscope of understanding of how to live into those spaces in the most dynamic and true way that was possible for me at the time. That level of understanding and experience has expanded exponentially over the last 20 years, doing the hypnotherapy guide work that I've done, doing different levels of medicine work, working with the extraterrestrial beings that are called to me, working with the ascended masters, working with all these different ineffable, intangible beings. I have completely and utterly been grateful and astonished by the way that the directions have held me in place, have guided me back to my body, have guided me back to a place of connectivity with this dimension, this reality, this third dimensional reality that is really necessary because I have a body. I'm here in this meat suit, and it's necessary for me to be here to do the work that I'm doing. And I travel quite a bit. So using these directional orientation points gives me that space, and asking, I say using, like I'm not using them. I think sometimes more they're using me as a vessel for what it is they're trying to channel through. I think they have their own idea of what's real. I think they have their own desire to help ground this human experience into something that is tangible. I hear a lot of people now, especially with the ramping up of all the medicine work, and like, oh, I'm creating my own reality and I'm doing all these things. And while that's true, we are creating our own reality, at least from my perspective and my cosmology. There is a reality that is happening cosmically and in the invisible realms and the multidimensional understanding of the world, that worlds, universes, mystery that requires orientation back to this existence. Why the fuck did I come here? Why did I choose to be in this body, in this time, in this place, with so much chaos, so much climate, so much fascism and pain and anger, so many people starving, so many people like consuming so many resources, and you know, how do I make sense of that? How do I actually live in that? The only way I've found to do that effectively and not get the fuck off this planet is to be embodied, is to be in a deep intrinsic relationship with the material form as it shows up, as I chose it to show up when I came in as a soul to this incarnation. And so I hope that gives a little context. I wanted and want to teach more about how to use these directional forces, how to be in relationship with these directional entities in a way that can benefit you and your work, whether that's your tangible work in the world of creating change, whether that's your deeper internal work of unburdening yourself from past life traumas or childhood trauma, or just the existential crisis of being in a fucking body in this time on this planet. So, and I want to teach more about trance. And I think, honestly, trance is, for me, the way that I move most definitively and most directly through these realms and learn more accurately what it is I'm doing here. And without the directions, trance is dangerous. It can lead us to getting lost in our egos, in our heads, in the ethereal. It can lead us to being possessed. It can lead us to being taken over by forces that are maleficent or even just hungry. You know, the hungry ghosts out there. We're vulnerable if we're not connected to our bodies, if we don't have orientation, if we don't have ways of being in relationship. So, anyway, this is a longer video. I hope you made it through the whole thing. I feel like I was kind of rambling at certain points, but felt necessary. And I hope this brings you back into connection with this practice and with your own practice. And I hope that we can find ways to work together to use these beautiful, powerful entity and energetic forces to create change here on this planet.